We as Muslims believe Abraham was a prophet of Islam. And similarly the Christians, similarly the Jews, we all refer to Abraham as the patriarch, as the forefather of worshipping the one and only Creator. So Muhammad received the revelation from God, and his lineage was linked up with Abraham. Now, when we look at other elements of the Holy Qur'an, we find that the Holy Qur'an was revealed in a period of 23 years. Generally, what happened was every messenger of God, so as Muslims, we believe in Jesus. Our faith is incomplete if we, as Muslims, don't believe in Jesus. Our faith is incomplete if we don't believe in Moses. Our faith is incomplete if we don't believe in all the great holy personalities that came on the face of this earth. As Muslims, لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ. God Almighty says that we cannot make a differentiation as to this prophet or this messenger of God being better than the other. But rather, we believe in every one of them equally. So a period of 23 years was the period for the revelation of the Holy Qur'an. When we look at all the other messengers, the revelation came to them in one instance. So Moses, for example, was given the Torah, the revelation, the Old Testament, in one instance, and he was told to take this message to the people. But when it came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, it was revealed in a period of 23 years. And it was based on incidents that occurred. For example, one verse that comes to mind, God Almighty says, إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ, which basically means that the person who has made this accusation against you is a person who is abtar, meaning that he is cut off. Now, what's the context of this? It's important to understand the background of certain verses and why they were revealed. So, we know Muhammad, he was an orphan. Those of us who study the life of the Prophet Muhammad, he was an orphan. His father passed away even before he was born. And his mother passed away when he was at a very young age. Now, Muhammad was an orphan. When he married as an adult and he had children, it's mentioned in the life of the Prophet Muhammad that he had 3 male offspring, 3 male children, and he had 4 female children. The 4 female children, the 4 girls, they grew up to be adults and they married and they lived long lives. But when it came to the male offspring, they all passed away at a very early, tender age. And one after the other. Tayyib, Tahir, Ibrahim. According to some narrations, it's Qasim. Nevertheless, these 3 male offspring, they passed away at a very early age. So the people who weren't positive with the Prophet Muhammad, they started spreading rumors that he's an unlucky man. He had 1 male child and he passed away. He had another male child and he passed away. He had another male child and he passed away. And usually, in Islam, when women get married, they don't have to take the last name of the husband. Okay, in other traditions it's a must. But in Islam it's not a must. Okay? So, generally the trend at that time in Makkah al-Mukarramah, in the city of Makkah where the Prophet Muhammad was born, if you have male offspring, they continue your lineage and your last name. Whereas when it comes to the female offspring, when they get married, they cannot retain, especially in that culture, their last name. So they began spreading a rumor that he's unlucky and he's cut off, meaning that the people will not remember him because he doesn't have any male offspring. They won't even know his last name because he has no male offspring. So these people, they spread rumors, they tried to harm the Prophet Muhammad, but the Prophet Muhammad was patient and he took whatever, he tolerated whatever he could. God Almighty revealed this verse and said, إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ, that this individual who has started this rumor of giving the title to the Prophet that he is cut off, meaning that his lineage won't be remembered, in fact, the person who started the rumor, he will be the one that is cut off. And we see this as a miracle of the Qur'an today also, that whenever a Muslim prays or remembers God, we say, La ilaha illallah, and then what do we say? Muhammadur Rasulullah. We say there is no God but the only God that is to be worshipped, whom we call Allah. And then we say Muhammad is God's messenger. So every human being that belongs to the Islamic faith, nay, not even the Islamic faith, there are individuals that are outside the Islamic faith who have written tremendous words, and they have explained the life of the Prophet Muhammad, and they continue to remember him. So God Almighty said that even though you don't have your male offspring, your name will still be remembered. And in fact, there is one quotation that I came across by a non-Muslim scientist who said, "It amazes me to see that this man who was named Muhammad, he started off individual. He was one man. But today there are millions of people who are so impressed and so influenced by his teachings. And there is no man that has ever walked on the face of this earth that has created such impact." So, this was the person whom the Qur'an was revealed upon. The point I'm making here is that in a period of 23 years based on incidents. I gave you an incident and I explained how a verse of the Holy Qur'an was revealed based on what happened. So like this, there were many incidents that occurred, some in the Meccan life and some in the Medina life of the Prophet Muhammad, and this is why we have two sets of verses. We have chapters and verses that are regarded as the Meccan verses, and some as the Medina verses, meaning that those verses that were revealed prior to migration and those that were revealed after migration. Now, one interesting point about the Holy Qur'an that we don't find in any other religious book is that the Qur'an, number one, was written as soon as it was revealed. If you ask any Christian theologian about the Bible as to when it was written and when it was recorded, they argue as to the exact period of time. But the closest or the nearest they say is 40 years after Jesus left. 40 years after Jesus left. So now, when it comes to the Holy Qur'an, the verses were revealed and the Prophet Muhammad had at least 6 secretaries. 6. And they wrote down the verse of the Holy Qur'an, every verse of them. At that time, there was no concept of paper. So they wrote it on bark, they wrote it on trees, they wrote it on stones. Okay, they had hide, animal skin that they wrote on. And this was preserved. So this was one way of preserving the words of the Holy Qur'an. And the second method of preserving the Holy Qur'an was through memorization. And again, as soon as the verse was revealed, إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا جَمْعَهُ وَقُرْآنَ. Allah says, God Almighty says in the Holy Qur'an that there's nothing to worry, Muhammad. As soon as you receive the verse, it'll be in your memory. Imagine having a photographic memory. Okay, you won't need your notes. Okay, nevertheless, what Muhammad felt was that when the verses would come down, he felt that he may forget them. So he was in a sense of concern, he was in a dilemma as to what he should do. So God said, there's nothing to worry, don't make movement of your tongue. As soon as that verse comes down, it'll be embedded in your heart. And this is exactly what happened. So when he recited the verse that was revealed, they wrote it down, and they also memorized it. And there are millions of people. Jeffrey Broad, who writes in one of his books, he studies the world religions, and many of his books are taught in world religions classes in the Western Hemisphere. And he points out that the world's most memorized book is the Holy Qur'an. From cover to cover. There are 6,000 verses, more than 6,000 verses in the Holy Qur'an. And I am sure that in this room there are a few Muslims that have memorized the Holy Qur'an. You go to any mosque in Toronto and you'll find that there are at least 30 to 40 people who have memorized the Holy Qur'an from cover to cover. And this is what we believe as a miracle of the Holy Qur'an. So the preservation of the Holy Qur'an was through writing, recording, and also through memorization. And I pointed out that there are over 6,000 verses, and these verses are categorized into 114 chapters, which are known as surahs of the Holy Qur'an. Now this is just a general idea of what the Holy Qur'an is, and how Muslims look at the Holy Qur'an. As to what are some of the topics or the themes in the Holy Qur'an, again, I can't summarize within these few few moments as to what is exactly in the Holy Qur'an, but I can give you a general idea. So I'm just going to list a few things here. Number one, the main theme in the Holy Qur'an God speaks about is His absolute authority. So when the Prophet Muhammad was sent as a messenger, he noticed that there are people who have the wrong concept of who God is. So God introduces Himself in the Holy Qur'an, that I am your God, you are to worship me, and it is absolutely my authority that I reign, and I have the control, and I am the creator, and I have no partner. There is a very short surah, there is a very short a chapter of the Holy Qur'an which is known as Surah Al-Ikhlas. Ikhlas means sincerity. So the sincerity to God is لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Who is God? He is totally independent, He is absolute in His authority, and He has no equal to Him. He has no partner, and He has no one that can share His divinity. He is one. He's not half. He's not 1/3. Okay, He's not 1/millionth. He's one. وَحْدَهُ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. This is what is mentioned in the Holy Qur'an, that God is one without any shape or form of a partner. I was recently speaking to a reverend, and he was saying, you people have it very easy. You know, when you say one, it means one. But when we say one, we have to explain that, there are 3 elements that make the one. And it can be challenging sometimes. So I said, why don't you just, come onto my faith, it'll be easier for you. Nevertheless, there's no compulsion in religion. So, accountability of humans for their deeds. This is another theme that we find in the Holy Quran. God says that don't feel that you can do anything on this earth. As human beings, we have to obey God's commands. And if we obey God's commands, then God will give us peace. God will give us tranquility. Even though we may be surrounded by challenges. Even though we may be enveloped in making sacrifices. But when we are obeying God and we are feeling that we are accountable to only our God, then what happens is that we get a sense of peace. We get a sense of hope. And this is why in the Holy Quran, God Almighty speaks about this theme, that if you understand that you're accountable to God, then you will always have that awareness. So we see generally nowadays crimes in the increase. We see violence in the increase. Okay, we see young people in many occasions where they resort to means for satisfaction, for example, drugs, etc. And many times, unfortunately, the lives are destroyed. So God Almighty is explaining in the Holy Quran that if you're looking for peace, if you're looking for a true sense of spirituality, worship that one God and understand that you are accountable to Him as to what you do. Every movement that is done, it'll be asked about when it comes to the Day of Judgment and the life hereafter when we are to face God. So this is another theme. Another theme or topic of the Holy Quran is that this life is temporary. As Muslims, similar to Christians and Jews, Muslims believe that this is not the only life. We are here for a very short period of time. And again, if we have this sense of accountability, then we will work hard to be successful not only in this life, but the everlasting life of the hereafter. Now, in the Holy Quran, we find numerous parables or examples. So God Almighty, for example, He speaks about life after death. A parable that I want to talk about, it's very simple. There were a few people who came to the Prophet Muhammad and they said, you're claiming to say that there is life after death. And what he did is he took a bone, and it was decaying, it was dried, and he took it in his hand. It was a dry bone of possibly a human being or an animal. And he crushed it in his hand, and it became powder. And he said to Muhammad that you are claiming to say there is life after death, and there's going to be life placed back into these particles? How will that happen? I just can't fathom. Logically, it doesn't make sense. So God Almighty sent down a verse of the Holy Quran. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. Do you not see that God Almighty sends down water from the skies? And then you take your dry seed. You go to Home Depot in spring, okay, or you go to Canadian Tire, you pick up some seeds, okay, put them in your hand and crush them. They'll become powder. They're dry, absolutely dry. There's no life in them. Okay, you put them into the earth, you sow them